What's up? You tuned in to the podcast again. That's crazy to think that you're back again for season 3, episode 2. And we're here with Zero Trash Wave. Is that the full name you want to go by? Or Zero?
ZER0re is the one we usually go by if we want to be a bit more specific, yeah.
Okay, cool. And do you want to just do alias, or we can do your name if you want? I know some people are weird about giving out names in this genre for some reason, which is funny.
I'm not that weird about it. I'm just really used to being called Zero when I'm talking about this kind of music, so I think that'll be
All right,
easiest.
well, we'll keep it there then. It's fun. I was just having like a big conversation about that with Desert Sands the other day, on how it's kind of like there's like that one scene in like Avengers where it's like, oh, we're using our fake names. I think that's funny as shit. Like that's where like if you go to like a vaporwave show and you're like, yo, what's up, skeleton lipstick or whatever the fuck, and just go by people's fun aliases. That's like half of the fun in this genre, I think. I don't know.
It is a lot of fun. Like I'm kind of used to it from like way back in gaming days, like when I used to play World of Warcraft and we were raiding. It was by the nickname. And come to think of it, like I talk to Desert Sand quite a lot. We both know our full names, and we just use the nickname still. So part of the scene, part of the charm, I guess.
Yeah, it's all part of the charm. Now, I didn't really until I started like looking into people for the podcast, I wasn't really clear on if you were just a visual artist or a vaporwave artist that did art sometimes. And so I just dove into your Bandcamp recently. There's some really cool shit in there. And do you want to talk about NYX for a little bit? Because that's really a nice little piece of stuff you got there. No, not NYX, Afterglow. Excuse me. I think Afterglow is super cool.
Oh, Afterglows, that's a pretty deep cut now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really like the genesis of the style I have now, I guess, because that was almost entirely non-sampled and going back to like my more noisy roots, because I've been making music for about a decade. So yeah, that was fun. And I think it gives a good starting off point if you're looking into my discography, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say this is very I don't know, like it's that in between of like people crafting vapor music and like people like trying to get that like VGM kind of sound too. It's just really interesting. I like the space of it and everything. You said you've been producing or like composing or making music for like 10 years. Do you want to talk about that journey for a sec? Like how did you start making music?
I started kind of offhandedly, just, finding a new hobby. Like, how do you get into playing an instrument? Like, I bought a bass guitar at some point because it seemed less challenging and less intimidating than a real guitar, in like quotation marks. But I quickly found myself like fucking around more with the few effects pedals I had and barely, if ever, playing the guitar, and then onto Audacity and Ableton Live, and I was having so much more fun with the non-musical side of the music, so that went into a small career in harsh noise and really experimental stuff.
Were you always called Zero doing the harsh noise and stuff like that?
No, the harsh noise stuff was under the very unwieldy name of Unholy Analog Noise Machine. I'm still credited as Sebastian Noise Machine de Sauvage at some points, which is fucking great. I was the noise machine for a couple of years. And then as a Crucifix Eye, which was like a straight up harsh noise walls thing, so more of the Merzbau wall of sound kind of thing. So that was fun. Just way out there.
Cool. Yeah, man. Like I feel like most people that are been doing it long enough have like a era of just making some wacky ass shit that's like really fun to make. It's a niche group of people listening to it, and the people that do listen to it fucking love it. I just think that's so fun. I used to make a bunch of weird like interludes to interludes, like Boards of Canada shit, like kind of inspired me. And I was like, wow, I want to make a song where it's just reverse synths and a guy talking about islands being made from volcanoes, and like that's it. And I thought that was like the shit, like just doing stuff like that for a few years. And yeah, it took me a while to like come out of it and whatnot. But yeah, when did you make the switch over to these vapor style stuff of being zero? Like going all the way back, like to Afterglow, you know, that's the first thing. Like, would you say that kind of kicked off the whole scratching the itch of being this aesthetic?
I'm gonna like really have to make sure I get my own facts straight. I'm just gonna open up my own Bandcamp real quick so I actually get the dates right. Because technically, Afterglow was the first thing I released, but it's not the first material I made as Zero. So
Oh, okay.
that year I actually kicked off, which was, let me check that, 2018, by just going into a track a day challenge thing. So I was in the middle of moving to the house where I am now, so we were remodeling, and most of my gear was in storage and inaccessible. And just the stress of remodeling and moving houses meant that I hadn't been making music for a good long while at that point. So, 1st of January, I just decided like I'm going to start making music again with whatever I have here, which was like half a computer set up in a corner. I think I didn't even have a desk. Like I was using the kitchen table because we had to order a desk for the new house, which we hadn't done that. So proper improvised and just I'm going to finally look into this vaporwave thing that I've read so much about that I haven't properly gotten into. And I'm going to do a track a day, which I did for, I think, about half a year at least. Most of those tracks were then repackaged into MIDI Hack, which is my oldest material, but it came out just after Afterglow. And then Afterglow into Slipstream, into Tungsten Dragon, and then it just became whatever it is now.
What is that in between that like other language release with like the road and whatnot?
Oh, Hageshi, yeah, that's sampled. So that
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm noticing a lot of people that will have their shit like how you have, like go sample based when it's like characters like that, like another like style of text, you know? Do you kind of feel that same kind of
I have like some
way?
internal rules for how I classify my releases. Like in hindsight, I probably like with hindsight, I probably would have done that under a different alias, which is why I kind of use a couple of different aliases now. Some of which are known, some of which are not, to depending on the process behind it. And yeah, it was experimentation with samples. It's not the typical copyright heavy samples people would use, but that was really jumping into that, really trying to emulate a more early vaporwave or ambient vapor approach to creating the music. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ambient vapor is a good way to put it. At least for like that early stuff, it seems very low energy, pull it back stuff. Have you collabed with anyone recently, or do you plan to collab with anyone in the scene? Do you have any eyes on some characters that you'd like to work with? I mean, you just did some art for some amazing fucking people
Oh, yeah.
that we'll go into later.
In terms of
yeah.
collabs, like I'm just gonna straight like insecure about my creation process. Like I'm very internal logic and non-traditional ways of creating. Like I have absolutely no formal training whatsoever. Not a single instrument I can even play a little bit. Not a single minute of music theory. So I'm really self-conscious about that, and I'm also at my best when I'm just by myself creating. So the collabs I've done have been features and very heavily edited. So I think the biggest one was with Jade. You Too Should Fear What You Have Created. In terms of unwieldy album titles, that one gets it. And that was basically I made the full-length album pretty much by myself. Then I got submissions from Cat System Corp and Desert Sand Feels Warm at Night to do little bits, which I then processed as if they were samples, so as more bass material. And I was basically waiting for Jade to do roughly the same thing. Like I asked for something that was like cliche, ambient, give me a couple of minutes of material. And instead she decided to do improvised atmospheric vocals over the entire album, which is like, okay, this is fun. I'm just gonna run with this. So and then basically remixed the entire album around those vocals, and the end result is what came out on Allo City Records.
Whoa. You should. What was the title of that again? Say that title. You should. You too should fear what you have created, and the vocals continue throughout the entire record.
Yeah, it has vocals throughout by Jade.
And like they just like press record and let it run the whole time and just did like improv vocals over top is what you're saying?
She did a couple of
Or just for
takes
the one
and
song?
after a couple of listens, but yeah, there's some parts that have really heavy lyrics into like really demented synth pop edge, and then there's ambient vocal improvisation, just atmospheric stuff as well. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. I'm definitely gonna check that out. I don't narguar the fuck out of people before doing like an interview. I like kind of learning about them as we go. But that's fucking crazy. Like I was just talking to Desert, and like when he did his little, like he sung one of the parts from like one of his albums, and I was just like, it's so real hearing this shit live. Like, and like when you're not using samples and then you put it into this vapor flavoring, you know, it just makes it seem like it's not you, you know. Like I did a couple songs where like I sung in falsetto and pitched it down an octave and then and then like that really takes me away from the song. It makes me like able to listen to it in like as a third party. Do you ever get that experience, at least with this genre, like making some of these tunes in your alone process? Because I write alone exclusively too. Like it's rare. Only recently I've been getting really friendly with people like VV Vulture and comfortable to work out of my circle. But like I think like this genre more than anything is so interesting to hear your own playback. You know, it's very cool. I don't know what's your experience with that. Is it just me? I don't know.
I think the creation process is a very personal one. I think that's one of the strengths of like experimental electronic music, because there's so few limitations on it. You can really go for like those deep cuts of your psyche and your creation process. But yeah, in terms of listening back to it, like I like a good amount of distance. Like I will never put something out that I haven't listened to extensively. At least as Zero, there's a big quality control element there. And I try to have a little circle of people around me to quality check and make sure I'm not completely going off the deep end, which is why I like the whole album with label process. The fact that there's someone mastering to make sure I don't do really weird shit on that side, and just a label making sure that the creativity is packaged in the most accessible way. Because that in the end I think is important. Like I want to, might sound really arrogant, but I do kind of want to reach people and make sure that what I put out resonates with people and reaches as many people as possible. So, and having a network.
How could that sound arrogant? That's just passionate, man. That's not arrogance. That's just a normal artist. Oh, you want your art to like slightly matter? Like, oh, that's fine. I totally feel you.
And I have a small network around me that I talk with a lot. Like recently, it's one of those like common secrets. Like me and Desert Sand talk a lot. We're pretty close, which you wouldn't really expect in our musical output, but which is fun. You know, he has a very traditionally trained and vocal and technical approach to a lot of things, which is the complete opposite of my very punk and DIY background. And then
that's the cool part about this shit. We have classically trained motherfuckers, and then we have people like just going for it, like you. And you're still coming out on like the same spectrum, like pushing out really good pieces of work. You know, I think that's such a cool part about this genre, that it's very malleable. Like if you have an idea, it'll fucking happen.
Oh yeah, totally. And I actually really like hanging out with the slush wave people lately, because it's a scene that's really coming into itself, rising out of the roots that were put down back in the day, which was very sampled and very much based around a couple of big names. But I think the genre is coming into itself, and there's a lot of just interesting, fun, introspective stuff happening there.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good kind of transition, because I wanted to talk about that a little bit of like, would you say it's moving in all subgenres of vapors, like slush wave, mall soft, vaporwave? Would you say it's all moving away from sample based now that it's getting more, I would say, of a community, more mainstream, more the fact that like people are buying and selling it and streaming this, so you can't just sample every motherfucker if you want to fully monetize your stuff? Like, well, what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's still the same or getting more original as you talk into more slush wave communities and whatnot?
It's been fun because it really is a wave-based genre. Like early in vaporwave stuff, like for the proto vapor stuff, and then the first wave of artists. But even now, like being there since 2018, there was a really big knee-jerk thing about not being sampled a couple of years back, where people were borderline annoying about how proud they were that it was not sampled.
Yeah.
And then, like, I know it matters for the labels. Like, I know that Hirath Records, Cat System Corp's label, only does entirely unsampled stuff because he doesn't want the copyright nightmare that it could be. But then at the same time, didn't, like, Death's Dynamic Shroud just get a ton of attention with an album that is completely sampled from pretty recent stuff, which would totally, shouldn't fly or will not fly. So I think
That's
we
a
went
whole nother
there.
conversation. That's a whole nother conversation of what label did Death Dynamic Shroud drop that on, or is it just an independent release? I forget.
I think it's part of their club thing that they have on Bandcamp, but at the same time, they're signed to 100% electronica, so they must be looking at this to some extent.
And I'm pretty sure like 100% is like talking to Spotify, talking to big names. Like if they're not curating the fucking vaporwave playlist, like who is? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I feel like at that point, that's such a huge record. Like, didn't the Needle Drop fucking review it
yeah,
and stuff?
totally.
Like, if you have a label that big, they're doing that work. I feel like Cat System Corp is fucking huge, right? But it's not 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's not 100% electronica. So I guess if you have the resources, a completely sample-based album is fine, because just look at most hip-hop. Like, how the fuck do you clear a Donkey Kong 64 sample? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. But I don't like gatekeeping any way, shape, or form. Like I moderate the subreddit as well, so I like moderation. I like being able to define the genre as what it is. I absolutely hate people shilling chillwave and synthwave as vaporwave just for clicks. But aside from that, it really is a pretty much anything goes, and that's where the strength is for a large part.
I find more synthwave and retrowave,
Yeah.
trying to bump their way into this aesthetic bubble that is like vaporwave, Molosoft, slush, and like you could say signal wave and broken whatever the fuck. Like they're always trying to bump in. It's like, we don't want your high quality, high frequencies, guys. That kick sounds way too good. You need to back off. But like, I feel like you're absolutely right. Like, it's easily contaminated on Reddits with like all these other genres. But this kind of segues into a thing I want to start bringing up with interviewing all these aesthetic people, vaporwave people. What would you consider the checklist for something that's a slush wave song?
Ooh. Slushwave particularly has a really specific style as well, so...
For me, I would always type like S dash S dash S dash L dash L dash U dash, like so like that's my how to explain it to someone. But like, yeah, just like, whoa, in a quick, someone's asking about it at a fucking family party. How do you tell them what slush wave is?
Yeah, just like that really like record playing at a wrong speed, slightly phasery. The phaser, flanger kind of vibe is important to me because that's a little spice that makes it slush wave and not something else,
The
Yeah,
like
it
the
needs
movement of
to-
frequencies.
It envelops you. It's slightly swirling. It is absolutely peak dream music. So that liminal space dream music where Molosoft has a very specific place, it's a lot more hazy with slush wave.
Yeah, would you say it's like more of like vaporwave, but like, because like Molosoft is airy. I feel they like use a lot of field recordings to give you that breath of like a space. Would you say like Slushwave is very much just like condensing vaporwave type, like just like heavy beats, like defined like saturation type, but just like mainly working with delays and automation and frequency sweeps and shit like that, like flangers and that stuff? Like, would you say it's more like beat bass is what I'm saying? Like, is there like drivingness to Slushwave, or would you say it's more leaning towards like dream punk and dream tone and stuff like that?
I mean,
Or
we have
or is
so
that the
many
beauty of
artists as
Slushwave?
well. So, I mean, something like a Desert Sand is very good at keeping that. It's constantly swirling, but it is moving forward. There's a certain momentum to it. But
Definitely.
I've done a lot of live mixing in smaller rooms. So for me, I really look at the way the space is designed that it's moving in. And then like something like Mallsoft is a very hard and open space, which has that very clean, reverby sound. While Slushwave, it's not really a coherent space. Like it's slightly moving, it is reverberating, but not the frequencies you would expect. It's kind of cleaned up, so that's why, to me, it has that dreamy quality. It's what your brain would like to hear, and none of the little crap that usually gets in the way of that ultimate audio experience.
Okay, that's a cool way to put it. Would you consider like Mindspring, Slush? Like, what would you consider Mindspring memories? Like the average Mindspring song?
Sadly have to admit I haven't listened to enough Mindspring memories to my own taste. That's one of those things on my to-do list. But I would put their music totally in the Slushwave category. As much as I know that Angel doesn't really like her music being put in really specific boxes.
Yeah, for sure. At least not Fire Tools. I feel like they're very all caps plunderphonics when it comes to Mindspring, at least. But that's cool. That's cool. I like hearing different people's like what does it take to make that, especially someone that's like thriving in that genre. Because I find myself fucking flabbergasted trying to tell people who that's like, what do you do? Like, what kind of music is it? I'm like, oh, it's like, Wii Sports, but you're really high.
That's great though. Wii Sports, but you're really high.
Like, that's how, like, but I totally understand what it means to, like, it's hard to collab with people, especially when you're writing Slushwave stuff. Like, I feel like it was like mini Slushwave / Mallsoft was like the Woohoo album. And there's no fucking possible way I could ever collab with someone with that album because it's just so unconventional. Like, you're just mixed downing crazy stuff and swamping it and slicing it and cutting it up in all different ways. And yeah, it's hard to collaborate sometimes in this genre, especially when you're working with these aesthetic, like, dare I say, like, mystery sounding stuff. Like, it's almost like, how the fuck did this come to be type sounds, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's what I think is interesting because Vaporwave as a genre, it's not built around specific instruments, it's built around mood, it's built around effects. And the way I often now, like getting to grips with my own production style and learning more about how I function as an artist is the one thing that really draws me to the music genre is that it will take reverb as an effect as seriously as a lot of other genres take instruments and entire histories. And to me, that really speaks to how my brain works, where I don't consider something like reverb to be inherently inferior to an entire orchestra. It's also something that is infinitely useful.
Absolutely. Like, I work with classical people, like, for my day job, and they're like, so you're going to add reverb to that? It's like, of course we're going to fucking add reverb to that. Like, I know you play in a hall normally. So, and like, yeah, reverb is so important, and it's only taken us to work in computers, I feel like, to really realize the uses, what we can do with that, and like create whole new styles from running through reverbs. That's such a fun thing with this genre. It's very open ended. As long as it hits the mark at the end, it's like you can do whatever the fuck you want to get to that end point. Sick. Do you play live out in Berlin?
I'm in Belgium, so really bumfuck nowhere in terms of things to do. So I play live when the opportunity is there. I think in the past I really tried to push myself onto some live lineups, but they're few and far between. The crowd's not there, and if they're there, most of them don't really get what you're doing. So
yeah. What would you do live? Like, how what's your equipment? Do you like DJ your stuff out, or use Ableton live?
I've done both. Like my initial live set, there's some pictures online. I used to have the double launch pads synced up in Ableton. So I was actually triggering all the MIDI sequences live and just basically playing through the entire album with the launch pads as a sequencer. Then I stopped doing that because 2 launch pads plus laptop just means that you blue screen if you're lucky while you're setting up and if you're less lucky in the middle of your set a couple of times.
Oh wow.
So yeah, just the amount of money that was on stage at that point. So the current setup is an SP404 with pretty much my entire back catalog on it as full tracks, and then a couple of reverbs and echoes and delays to make it a bit more spacious.
Wow. I didn't. Damn. I don't know a lot of fucking vaporwave people that use 404s for this stuff. That's like a lo-fi thing. I find more. You know what I mean?
We can
Is it
we can blame
easily
FM
to-
Skyline and Cat System Corp for that. They're the ones that got me onto that.
I guess that's a easily. Fuck. I gotta check that shit out then. Like I've been pushing it off because it's like I got push. I don't really need 404. But damn, that sounds crazy. So you recommend that 404 then, huh?
It is insanely versatile, and I get why it's so popular in hip hop. So I barely know how to play it, and even I can do some fun stuff with it. And if I had the time and dedication, I would just be a monk in the mountains somewhere and spend a year with just that thing. It is very interesting.
Yeah. Fuck. All right. It's on my list now. God damn it. I gotta make some more money.
There's a new one coming up with like an OLED display, and yeah.
Yeah. Everyone's losing their fucking shit. I keep seeing people talk about it in like little chats. When did you start taking your visual art seriously? Was that before you started making music or in the process of it?
I've almost always done my own visual art, just as a rule. And like all the album artwork for Zero is done by me, with the exception of Blank Slate Reflection, which was done by the label Holloway Tapes. And
Yeah, that's the only one that kind of doesn't fit the aesthetic, I'd say, on your Bandcamp. No, it's just like out of place
yeah,
in a cool way.
it's an interesting story because the entire album concept was kind of rescued by them, so they were involved, and it's more of a collaborative piece because of that. But yeah, the aesthetic really started popping off with doing the cover for Helvetera as an artist, doing the collage glitchy style for that, and then discovering Bryce 3D and suddenly doing CGI for the first time in my life.
So you do more than just pictures. Do you do videos and stuff too?
I animate in the same, like I work almost exclusively in Bryce because that's just an aesthetic I really like, which to me ties in with both the roots and the direction we're going with vaporwave. So,
Oh, 100%. Like, if anything, you keep making these things and giving them to like selling them to people, you're gonna be in biz, man. Because I feel like you already are. Like, your shit is so good. Like, I love your covers. I'm like definitely got you in line to hit you up for something soon. Honestly.
like, would love to work with you again, or for you for the first time. But yeah, would love to have my stuff on your music, of course.
I got the fucking Parish VHS right over here, and it's just so amazing, man. Like, good shit. So how long have you been doing stuff like that? Would you say?
Not that long, actually. So on a very random day a couple of years ago, I basically asked Tim Six and Cat System Corp, what the fuck did you use to make that album cover? And that was like specifically Tim Six has a couple of those of his older work that are done in Bryce. And then Oasis by Cat System Corp has that really recognizable aesthetic. And they just came back with the link to the software. I bought the software legally. It's like $30 for the deluxe edition. And again, like I did with the music, I jumped into it like I'm gonna do a render a day. I'm only gonna finish working on it when I'm happy with the one for that day, and I'm gonna try and learn this stuff to do it as well as possible. And that's been, I think I'm on like 40 commissions now. I've got the vinyl for Desert Sand coming out with the Bryce artwork on it, and I've done 3D animations, but honestly, those are more work than it's worth, and the software doesn't really hold up that well. But
Damn, dude, that's just if that doesn't inspire someone to fucking go start that whatever the fuck you've been putting off, go do it right now. That's the story right there. Like, I'm inspired to start Bryce now because shit, like, I love 3D art. I feel like I'm decent with Photoshop, but like I feel like I'm gonna shit the bed as soon as I open up any of these programs.
honestly, like getting stuck into it is the biggest key. And to give you an exact date, my first render was on August 4th, 2019. And I hadn't opened the software
Wow.
before that ever.
Wow, that's not that long ago. Fuck, dude. Congrats on all the success. Real shit. Like, I love your art.
Thanks a lot, man. I mean, the reason it's this good, which I don't like saying, but the reason I got this far is because of the amount of support I've gotten from the scene. Like my first commissions were unasked for by Desert Sand, where I was just in chat with him, messing around with the software. And he's really good at pushing me to push the software further and go way beyond my regular limits as well. And just positive feedback from the scene, people putting their trust in me and seeing that blossom into what is now almost looking like a professional-ish career as a graphic designer. So,
I mean, that blended with the music, man, like, keep it up, please, because I want to see you being the Beeple of the vaporwave community. All right, it's because that's already where you are in my head. Is there anything you would like to plug or talk about right now? You got any upcoming albums or some shit, man? What's coming up?
I'm really caught up in like the whole production delay thing that's been going on for the last year. So if I'm gonna be like super real, like the past couple of years, like aside from the creative output, have been kind of shit. Like I'm on sick leave right now. I've been through a couple of different jobs in the last couple of years, so I'm on the tail end of that. It's all starting to level out, and the creative stuff is going to be very important going forward. I'm gonna integrate that more into my daily routine, well, even more, and that's where I see my future going. But the music alongside that, like Nyx was born from a very bad creative period where Aqua Blanca basically pushed me like, you promised us an album X amount of months ago, and I want you to deliver that album now. And that's why it sounds kind of harrowing and not really easy listening. And then since then, there's multiple albums that are finished and that I've teased, but they're all just stuck in production hell somewhere. So,
damn. Well, definitely gonna check out Aqua Blanca's release of what you. So it's not it's an actual word. How do you say it?
I call it Nyx, but yeah.
Okay, I like getting it right because like I forget who it was. Oh, it was Bathroom Plants. I couldn't fucking pronounce their one thing, and I just kept fucking it up every time. I was like, this album was so good. It was like the computer generated. I don't even fucking remember. I have the vinyl. It's great. But yeah. So, can we expect anything this year from you, or is this still in production hell with all these fucking new projects coming out?
I sincerely, if everything goes according to plan, I have vinyl coming up for all of my different aliases in different stages of production. I have a new album on cassette, two new albums on cassette tape with different labels, reissues of some old stuff, both for Zero and for my other even more ambient-ish alias. That's the two little symbols, Alt247, also known as vaporwave or car, according to Rate Your Music. So,
okay.
So that's also going forward. Car. And there's reissues there happening. So it's not me to say where they're happening, but there's a lot of fun stuff going on, both with labels I've worked with before and then with labels I've been wanting to work with forever. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Fuck yeah, dude. Well, congrats on all that. It sounds like it's going to be a big-ass year for you. Go check out Zero Trash Wave on Twitter. And you're not on Instagram, are you?
I am on Instagram, actually. I think the easiest way, if I'm going to plug my shit, it's ZER0re.com. So ZER and then the number 0 and Ray is REI.com. And that has,
I'm going to try and start linking shit in the episode, so hopefully that's in there.
So yeah, that has like my archives of my renders, that has my entire discography with like notes and links, my biography, and then even like archives of the GIFs I've done for profit and crypto, which is a thing I don't do anymore, but we archived those, so that's there. And a little shop with like prints and music and mugs and other random bits we've done. So
I got a really good print from you hanging on my wall right back here. Really nice stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, the fucking big ass. I bought the wrong size, and I think my parents bought me the frame for Christmas, but it was like $100-something for the frame, and honestly, worth every fucking penny. It's working out. So go check out his art. Go support him. And you're going to want his art on your fucking album because people will be like, oh shit, Zero did the art. The music's got to be good. There you go. I just gave you a secret. Anyway, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. And Hope to work with you very soon. Honestly, I will be hitting you up for shit.
Oh, totally. My DMs are open. In general, my DMs are always open for people to chat. Even like Bryce questions, if anyone wants to get into that, it's a pretty cheap piece of software. Always up for giving tips, and would love to work with you again in the future, man. You know that.
Oh, fuck yeah. All right, everyone have a great day. We're going to make that the thing for this season. You have a great day. I know it's basic, but you're going to have a great day. Okay, bye.
Bye.